When I first started this channel, it was going to be all about my grand ascension to making lots of money online, being a solopreneur. And I've studied Anthony Robbins, neurolinguistic programming, lots of stuff to enhance my performance. But what I've found is that unless you really believe in yourself, and to go a layer deeper, unless you're actually okay with yourself and even love yourself, or at least you don't hate yourself, it's going to be really, really hard for you to put yourself out there, to connect with other people, to have friends, to network, and live a normal, happy life. And that's kind of the foundation, is you've got to have self-belief. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which talks about that. And so I was producing videos on this channel and reading all of these books. You can see some of them up there. There are other books. I mean, that unit down there is completely stacked with books. I've read about 140 books in the last 3 years, and I've learned a lot about strategy, marketing, selling, all of this stuff. But really what I found is that none of that is going to help you if you're not okay with yourself, if you haven't got that foundational piece in place, which leads me to talk about the next thing, which is what might cause you to not be comfortable in your own skin, to not be okay with yourself. And I've got a video coming out on this. I've got a whiteboard up there, which is part of the video. I'll do a quick flash. There it is right there. And that is about CPTSD. And this is something that I think a lot of people are living with and they don't know it. CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I won't go into what that is right now, but what it causes, it can cause things like, so I hesitate because it's really hard to describe, hard to fully communicate through words, crippling social anxiety like you cannot believe. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And he talks about people with very, very bad trauma stuck inside their body when they're triggered in a certain situation. So for somebody with social anxiety disorder, that would be in a social group, or it could even be a one-on-one. It could even be talking to their own parents. They can get hit with a surge of anxiety so hard that they nearly physically, the brain and body tries to escape, so switches off. They literally can pass out. That is not livable. Like, it's very, very hard to live with that. So that's one thing that CPTSD can cause. And of course, self-hatred, low self-esteem. Here's a great book on, this is like the daddy of books on self-esteem. And at the end of this book, by the way, there are these things called stems, sentence stems, where you finish the stem. He tells you how to do it in the book. You've got to have at least a reasonable level of self-esteem. If you kind of loathe yourself, you despise yourself, and you maybe don't feel you should be on this planet, I go back to all of those books like The 4-Hour Work Week, Russell Brunson's Marketing. That stuff's not going to do much for you, really. And I hear people say, oh, well, you take action and you become the person. No, you don't. If you've got very, very bad underlying issues, you're going to be stuck, and you've got to work through this stuff. And that's the good news, is that you can work through something like CPTSD and get through it. And that, as a result, will greatly alleviate, even heal or remove the symptoms of things like social anxiety disorder, self-loathing. And another thing, having a scattered mind. And this is a great book by Gabor Mate, where he talks about how ADD is not necessarily, a genetic thing. It is something that can be caused by lots of trauma. And in this case, let's say complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you somebody with very bad ADD or symptomatic ADD, so that it's not that it's something they're born with, it's something that's a result of trauma, could sit with a page, try to read a book, try to read a paragraph like this, or 2 short paragraphs, and be sat there for 20 minutes, drifting, going in and out of zone, daydreaming, having to go back to the start. That is a massive handicap, because a lot of people cite reading books as one of the main things that educated them, allowed them to learn business strategy, and get ahead in life. So you can't read, it's very, very hard for you to read. Now, I've done a video on how to read. There are techniques like following a finger or a pen is one, turning off all distraction is another, scheduling your reading is another, setting a timer and making a game out of it, so trying to read 1 page in 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever reading speed you're at is another. And you can get better at reading, but ultimately, if you've got trauma in your system, you can have symptoms of ADD. So that is what CPTSD can do to you. And that is what this channel is going to be more about, how to understand what this stuff is, whether you've got it, and what to do about it. Because I really I see a lot of people talking about sort of 7 productivity hacks and 7 reasons why you're broke and the best business model to make, become a millionaire within the next 18 months or whatever. But there are a large group of people, guys, that I'm aware of, who are limping through life dealing with this CPTSD, and it's a killer. Like, you may not even know that you have it. You just think that you're deeply defective. Yeah, so what to do if that's you? Well, if you have any of these symptoms, like severe social anxiety, and you will know if you have that, you're always late to things, classic symptoms of ADD. You struggle to read, you get shiny object syndrome, you lack belief in yourself, certainly if there's any self-loathing. The thought of dating someone, you feel like you're not worthy of that. The thought of going up to a girl and asking her, or trying to start conversation with her or anybody, just fills you with dread. Now, it's not normal to have some reticence about doing that, some hesitation, but if it is freezing you, and when you get frozen, you then act awkwardly in social situations, which then causes you to believe more that there's something wrong with you, because you are so stiff, you act awkwardly, people see that makes them feel awkward, they react back, and now you have more evidence to suggest that you are deeply defective. Yeah, what do you do? Well, first of all, recognize it. You could do an AI search or a Google search on what is CPTSD. Now, self-diagnosing is risky because you could get it wrong, and once you put a label on something, it can empower it and make you. Belief is incredibly powerful. So once you believe you have something, it can empower it. On the flip side, though, if you do actually have it and you diagnose it, then you can start to separate yourself from it, because you think, well, maybe I'm not completely crackers. Maybe I have this thing as a result of trauma. And where does CPTSD come from? Well, that is going to be in the next video that I'll upload. But in short, narcissistic abusive families can definitely be one, and very difficult times at school. So I think that this topic is more valuable than trying to learn business strategy, the best business model. And my hope is that maybe by me talking about this kind of stuff, it could help some people who just wonder what is wrong with me and don't know about these topics. And it would be cool for those people to be healed and do what they need to do to overcome that, and then actually start living life and achieving some big things. and being happier, because people with CPTSD, they often isolate themselves. So they lack social skills. And they isolate themselves because they're scared. They've maybe had very bad experiences in their families or at school or in friendship. They attract the wrong kind of people into their lives because they have very low self-worth. So they attract takers, people who will not treat you as you're meant to be treated. And then, yeah, they get damaged. So they end up isolating. And then when you isolate, all of these symptoms worsen. You become less socially skilled, you become more frozen, you do more awkward things when you do try and meet people or build some kind of a bridge, because intuitively you know you need connection, but that can end up doing more damage. This video is not scripted at all. I'm just sharing some thoughts out loud. I hope it speaks to somebody. Yeah. And that's what this channel is going to be more about, is how to get that foundation in place, how to recognize if you have a problem there in that foundation. And then on top of that, it would be amazing to, then learn the business strategy. Then all the Tim Ferriss stuff and other business gurus out there start to put that on top of the right foundation and live a good life and be able to have everything that you would hope for in life. And one day I'm a traditional kind of guy, meet a woman, have children, have a family, because the alternative is that you kind of stay isolated and single and you grow old lonely, and in the last 10, 20 years of your life, it may be very, very, very difficult, and it's not really a nice way to go out. It's a bit of a morbid thought, but that's how serious I think this can be for some people. I think, it can end up with them in very bad places. And so, if this channel could serve to help you avoid that, that would be amazing. So, I hope this speaks to somebody out there. And if any of that resonates, I want to say to you that this stuff, CPTSD, ADD, it can be healed. You've got work to do, but it can be overcome. And the last thing I'll say is that if you have isolated yourself, yes, trauma often does happen in community, but healing also happens in community. And so what you need to do is try to steady your nervous system, because you might have a dysregulated nervous system where you're just terrified and locked in this fight or flight, freeze or fawn response. Something called the polyvagal theory, where when you try to go to meet people and be in community, you have a bottom-up effect where you have a surge of fear and anxiety that paralyzes you. You freeze in your facial muscles and you then can't relate to people, because when you relate to people and connect with people, you smile, you move your eyes, you're more loose. But when you freeze, that doesn't happen. And then you see that because you're probably hyper aware of, you're hyper analyzing people's responses to how you're talking. You're very much in your head, and you get that, they mirror that back to you, something called mirror neurons, and then you're pretty screwed because you now have evidence that you've acted awkwardly again. So it's just a vicious cycle. This is horribly, I haven't even scripted this, but I'm going to draw this video to a close, and I hope it speaks to you. You can heal, you can learn about this stuff, but you can't stay in isolation. You've got to try to get to a place where you ground your nervous system, walks in the park. You can start with exercise, good sleep. A lot of you guys who do this will be late night scrolling, self-soothing by when the world is quiet, getting into YouTube podcasts, staying up late, not sleeping properly. That is absolute kryptonite for something like ADD, staying up late, not having good sleep. And it can cause your anxiety to surge. So you've got to calm your nervous system, so exercise can help, not having like 6 coffees a day, getting off of social media. I'm convinced that grounds your nervous system, walks in the park. And then as soon as you can, try to find a good, healthy community of people who are just balanced. No one's perfect, but they're safe people, and you start connecting with people, and that is where healing can really happen. I'll be talking more about other therapy modalities you can try. There are things called EMDR, eye movement desensitization. I forget the acronym, what that means. NARM therapy, NARM, can be really good, and schema therapy if this comes from your childhood. So yeah, this is a long rambly video. I'm going to end it here. I hope everybody is well and can be as happy and healthy as possible.